What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
I think the focus needs to remain on how we prepare and invest in Canadians for the challenging times ahead. And the need to step up with solutions, not slogans, to take seriously the challenges that Canadians are facing instead of amplifying them and causing more fear and division. Every politician has a choice about why they serve, of what they're trying to do, how they're trying to help. And my focus is very much, and always has been, on how to serve Canadians and build a better future. That's not what we're seeing from the Conservative Party.
That is Justin Trudeau today in New York, speaking outside the UN. And I think we all know, without him saying it, of course, who he's referring to, the Sultan of Slogans. That is Pierre Poilievre. And James MENNIE is on the line over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, you ask, is Poilievre in danger of tripping over the line dividing politics from parody?
Absolutely. And as we hear in that quote, I think you're seeing the embryonic beginnings of what will be the Liberal strategy, which is, never mind, you come after us with your slogans, we're just going to come after you. And it's so funny because we know much drama, much spin put on the Conservatives' recent moves. Oh, they're gonna table this non-confidence motion. We already know everyone's going to vote against it. We already know it's going to go nowhere. However, the idea that if you want to spin this and saying, well, he's being very Machiavellian now because he is making it clear that, and he has said out loud, all the Bloc and the NDP, they're codependent on the Liberals. The Liberals are spinning it. Certainly Chrystia Freeland today as well was spinning it insofar as, you know what, we're making tremendous progress. We're making all kinds of having all kinds of talks about, old age pensions and so on and so forth. And the message, tacit for the moment, but probably explicit later in the week, is that we're simply not paying attention to what Pierre Poilievre has to say. And that's a real problem for Mr. Poilievre, because when you come right down to it, his script doesn't go beyond 4 or 5 slogans. So if he keeps saying this over and over again, and the parties that he's targeting make it clear they're not interested, they don't care, they're still going to run the government. The governance will occur in Canada, despite the fact you say this whole country is broken. I think down the road, and I want to remind our listeners, if you've never listened to this show before, I am not a fan of Justin Trudeau, but you are going to see perhaps Justin Trudeau slowly but surely start to turn this around. I still think it would turn around a lot more quickly and a lot more assuredly were Justin Trudeau to leave the picture altogether. But I really think what is becoming clear now is that what appears to have been Pierre Poilievre's biggest asset, certainly what made him the darling of newsrooms across this country, because he kept his entire approach to politics is keep it short, stay simple, and stupid. Okay, it makes it easy. You could wind up a monkey to go cover Pierre Poilievre, and you get the same copy as you did if you sent a human being. But the fact is, after a while, it begins to wear a little thin. After a while, you have to ante up. And whether they want to or not, sooner or later, some newsrooms in this country are going to have to turn around and say, well, what exactly do you intend to do with housing? What exactly do you intend to do with energy or climate change? What exactly, indeed, given some of the things we're hearing out of the caucus, do you intend to do specifically about the whole issue of abortion in this country? We've only just begun to sort of open that Alibaba's vault of questions that have thus far been deliberately unposed to Pierre Poilievre. I think those days are passing, and Pierre Poilievre is going to have to hire a new scriptwriter, because right now I think he's really starting to smell like yesterday's news.
Yeah, listen, that part about wearing thin, I get that. It does sound like the same thing over and over and over again. I completely understand that. I wonder, though, for people who are, solidly in his camp, if they even hear that anymore, right? It just goes in one ear and out the other, because that's what you've come to expect from the man. But I wonder, Jim, and I've heard people say this as well with, this question about, well, what's your plan? What are you going to do? And the answer sometimes is, well, we'll reveal that when we get closer to an election. Does that carry any weight?
Listen, I don't know if I mentioned it to you when we were talking about the last Angus Reid poll, that most respondents believe the Tories have a secret agenda, and they're not going to tell you what they're really up to until after the election. Mm-hmm. And it says how fed up people are with Justin Trudeau that they're still leading the Liberals by more than 20 points. But I still think that there's a threshold, Aaron, I think, on the public's patience. And you're quite right. Like Donald Trump, Pierre Poilievre has dyed in the wool, died hard. You know, he can do whatever he wants and get away with it. But if you look at the polls over and over and over again, that's really closer to 30%, 35%, not the 42 or 43 we're seeing in polls right now, which is a reflection of how fed up people are with Trudeau. But 30 to 35, guess what? It's not majority territory. And can you imagine what a nightmare scenario for not just Pierre Poilievre, but for his caucus, which has been absolutely, it's like they're a bunch of monks who took a vow of silence. When was the last time you heard from a Conservative MP on anything whatsoever? What happens to them if they wind up, there's an election, what happens to them if they wind up in a minority situation? And guess what? All those slogans that sounded so good, it's not policy because no one's going to vote for it. Are you going to go to another election in 6 months' time? This could be a real possibility. I'm not dreaming in color here. And I'll say once again, I lead the pack when it comes to Justin Trudeau getting the hell out of politics. If he wants to do the country a favor, let him leave. But all that said, Pierre Poilievre's weaknesses, which in fact consist essentially of a total absence of any strength whatsoever, are becoming more and more obvious and more dangerous.
Let's move on to provincial politics. The Northvolt story, which started with the layoffs, of course, in Sweden, have now, of course, moved here. We started talking about this yesterday, but then tried to move to the National Assembly, where I think all the opposition parties have come out and said, hey, we need to take a closer look into this after it was discovered that Northvolt might need another at least $300 million from the Quebec government. So what do we make of this? Because I know the motion, by the way, has been denied, right? Yeah,
the emergency debate is not going to happen. But right now, the overarching theme of this is, if there was a model for this situation, it's, Northvolt, Swedish for freaking out. Because let's face it, we're discovering things now about this company. And I'm not saying they did it deliberately, but it looks like they bit off way more than they could chew. And indeed, it's not just these nervous Nellies in Quebec. The Swedes are freaking out. The Swedish government has created a crisis group to deal with the company's future. They are really, and indeed, Northvolt has hired a restructuring expert. And listen, to me, that's significant, if only because if somebody else says, you know what, you can't continue with these expansions overseas, that lets them off the hook because they kept saying, oh, we're committed to the expansions, including the plant in Quebec. But if a third, theoretically neutral party says, you're crazy, you guys will be jumping off a cliff if you do that, and if they have to pull the plug on that, well, then they can just turn around and say, it's not us, it's, cold business opinion, we're going to have to do it, which quite frankly would be a relief to, I think, the CAC caucus. But François Legault, being François Legault, I honest to God think this guy is not going to let go of this bone ever. This was his prestige product. And if he can find a way to pour $300 million into that project, I think he'll do it.
Hey, that's $300 million today, and maybe $200 million and $100 million down the line. We don't know where that's going to end, which is, of course, part of the problem.
Come on,
here, right?
It's only money. It's only money.
By the way, I thought Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois had a good line today. What did he say? He said the government is playing poker with our money as far as what we're doing.
Yeah, with other people's money. Yeah, which honestly, if you want to sort of be front and center with your average taxpayer, that's going to resonate. But as I say, I honest to God think François Legault is past the point of caring. He's had a terrible 6 months. His number two man has basically left him in the lurch. I'm not sure. You usually can say, well, 3 or 4 months. I have no idea where we're going to be 3 or 4 months from now, Aaron. I honest to God don't. I don't know if Legault is still going to be around. I don't know if the CAC is still going to be around in its current form. I think of all the opposition parties, it's perhaps only the Parti Québécois that is actually trying to stay 2 or 3 steps ahead of the game and try to anticipate what's going to happen. But honestly, Northvolt is a symptom of a much larger malaise, which has been part and parcel of the CAC government from day one. It's part of the CAC DNA, which is to make big announcements and then worry about the details later.
Yeah.
And if there is a problem, well, it's always someone else's fault. And if it's a problem that really is going to be dogging you around, well, create another problem, find another enemy, point the finger at somebody else who's threatening Quebec's identity, and try and get through like that. But once again, and if I may make so bold, I would even link this to what we were just talking about before. You can only keep singing from the same hymn book for so long when it comes to politics. And I think for Poilievre and indeed for Mr. Legault. The curtain's about to come down.
Jim, I have 30 seconds real quick. I asked the question. I will ask it again. In the wake of Luc Poirier, maybe, just maybe, becoming someone to run against Valérie Plante, self-made millionaire. Best and worst Montreal mayors ever?
Best mayor was Jean Drapeau. Worst, I would hesitate to designate someone the worst. Certainly the one who left me the most exasperated was Pierre Bourque.
Okay.
But I just think that Pierre Bourque was talk about a guy who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think he meant well. I think he loved the city, but this is a guy I don't think he should have been mayor of Montreal.
All right. James MENNIE. Jim, thank you.
Salut, Matt.